We're going to have a bit of a chat today about, as we talk about some of the impacts and how things are changing with COVID now and obviously in the future. You run a co-working space and innovation hub out in Toowoomba in Queensland. Been doing that for quite some time. In fact, one of the first ones, if not in the nation, definitely within Queensland. I'm bit of a thought leader there. What's it been like as far as this whole past 6-7 weeks experience for you guys?
Yeah, it's certainly been different, obviously, and had its challenges. Although I think one of the benefits that we have is the fact that we don't just rely on the people who come into our space. And I think that's actually made a significant difference for us. So we closed the last week of March and closed the physical space, but most people had not been working there during that time themselves. They'd chosen to start to be at home more because for the majority of them, they could, they're independent remote workers, they can work wherever. But there were a few people who, the reason they come, apart from the people, is the internet, because, they don't have internet at home or that can handle what they do. So we had to sort of make that call. And that was really tough, to say that we're closing. Our permanent residents still had full access to their offices, so they could still go in there. But for our, general co-workers, it was tough to make that call for them to say, look, I'm sorry, but you just can't come here anymore. So that was hard. But what we did was straight away set up virtual co-working. So from, the day we closed, or the day after we closed, twice a day. We do virtual co-working, and it's just an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon where people can just drop in. They can hang around for the whole hour, they can just drop in. But it's been a really nice way to stay connected with our community. And in fact, we've actually learnt that whilst we have quite a diverse community in terms of our entrepreneurial community, who often never co-work, that's not why they're part of what we do, the option for them to co-work with us was new and novel, and they really liked it. So we've got quite a few people who, live down in the Lockyer Valley and live a bit further out in Western Downs, who've been joining us on a regular basis, who've never co-worked. Well, yeah, for some of them, they've never actually even set foot in the co-working space. But they're now a regular part of our co-working community, which is really lovely. And a lot of our programs that we do were already either a hybrid version or, had an online component already. So for our community, we've found it hasn't actually been too daunting a transition to be able to stay connected and keep learning and, keep sharing what they're doing. So in some ways it's been really nice. In other ways it's been really sad. I miss seeing people, and I've learned I'm not an introvert at all.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the people connection. I attended some of those, one of your virtual co-working, which is really great to connect with people. And I was also a participant, participating as a mentor in one of your virtual accelerator programs that you guys ran as well. And one of the things that's come up is the potential for, particularly with regional hubs like you have out in Toowoomba, to actually expand services and add new things in and bring in new types of approaches as we move forward. Have you found that certain things you're doing now are going to be integrated into what you do moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've run a few different programs, and some like Startup On Ramp, we have always run online. It was for Darling Downs Maranoa region, that stretches right out past Roma. We would always run that online, and that was good. But the way we did it, whilst it worked, and that was fine, we've probably learned over these last few weeks just how to do things better in that online space. And in particular, we've been running a mining accelerator. So we're 4 weeks into a 6-week program. And with that accelerator, we've had a lot more industry engagement in that program, and from the local area, but also a little bit further out, and people who we could engage because they didn't have to physically be with us. And that was both from a time perspective and a distance perspective. So these are, tier 1 and tier 2 mining company executives that are giving us, 2.5 hours of their time on a weekday to be with our teams in a group session, and then in some one-on-ones Uh, you know, would we have got that if we'd asked them to come in person? Maybe, maybe not, but I kind of think not. When you add the travel time and you know, all of that into it. So I think for us, that opportunity to reach further into different industry organisations, you know, corporate organisations, yeah, I think there's just so much more scope there for us now to ask for, you know, these, you know, great people to give their time to support our community through programs, but in a virtual sense, even if that cohort might be physically together. But with that mining accelerator, I'm super excited. This is our second year of running it, and I've got my first female participant, yay, which is great for mining. But she's in Perth, well, not, she's not actually in Perth, but she's in Western Australia. So, you know, had it have been a face-to-face program, she would not have been able to participate. So, yeah, so there's a lot of really good things that have come out.
Yeah, we're hearing that a bit as far as it not only allows you to develop things and deliver new areas, but also be able to access not just a global participant, but also a global mentor pool. I'd be interested, like, do you find that actually places emphasis on you positioning yourself as a national leader, as a global leader in what you do? Because before you have the you know, hubs in a regional area, and there's this conversation around regional hubs versus metro hubs. But is there like almost an equalizer effect, but then also an opportunity for these, for you as a leader, as well as your hub and the programs that you do, to position as on a national scale?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's actually one where I found myself sort of moving into that whole negative mindset right at the beginning, when, you know, we'd been doing a lot of this stuff online for a while, but we'd only ever targeted our own community. We'd never tried to reach out into other people's spaces as such, physically or like geographically. Because our focus and the reason why we started what we started was to provide services to the people in Darling Downs, and then that extended to Maranoa as well. So that was our purpose, and that's where we marketed to, and that's what we did. So when this all come about and changed, I'm going to be honest that I was like, what the, you know, now we're competing with all these, you know, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne spaces or programs that are now going, oh, we're now doing this online, so we can, you know, we can help everyone in the world. And it's like, fuck off. You know, that's really what I thought.
We've been doing that the whole time. This is our space.
That's right. And you know, but even though we were online, we recognised and respected those geographical boundaries for the purposes of community. And like, it was not to say that people couldn't join in on online programs from anywhere in the world beforehand, because they could, like there were ones there. But I think what I saw was spaces and places and programs scrambling to say, how can I keep my business model sustainable when my physical space closes? And it's like, you know, that for a lot of spaces was new and frightening. I think for us, we weren't initially frightened. We thought, oh, we can handle this, we're going. And then it's like, oh, all of a sudden we've got all of this extra competition coming in, playing in that space that we were already in. So initially I did get a bit like, okay, what's this going to do to us? Like, how are we going to be challenged by that? And we were to a certain extent, but then we realised that actually it's not. It's not an issue. Our community and the community that we serve respect what we do and the fact that we're here for them, and have honoured that. Of course, if there's benefit in them signing up to a program or something that someone else is running, great, and you know, we encourage that. I mean, as I said, we're running a mining accelerator. We've got a team from WA involved. So if someone else is doing something that suits our community, you know, we always suggest that. Like when the guys in Cairns run their tourism accelerators, we're always suggesting to our community, you know, apply for that, because they're doing something that we don't provide for you. And so I probably got a bit off topic of the question, but yeah, it's, I don't know, it's settled again for me, I think, to go, actually, it's okay.
Yeah, and I really appreciate bringing that up, Joy, because that mindset shift and that initial reaction is quite often something that people gloss over, or they don't comment on it, because we should all get along, and we should have a, you know, kind of this mindset that we're all here together. But this natural reaction is something that's kind of often below the surface, and to hear you describe how you've worked through that into now, and it's something that where to hear you describe it, it's focusing not on the program, and not on the number of participants or the location, but actually on the value, and trading on the value that you provide rather than the actual, just the fact that you're running a program, and the fact that you can attract people from all across Australia now, including WA, is a real testament to what you guys are doing. So the and one of the other things that you mentioned before on a personal side of things is also the kind of your own discovery of realizing that you need people around there and things like that, and the kind of the journey that the individual goes through. What's it been like for you personally through the whole thing of kind of working through it? Because that's another thing that we don't often talk about, is this whole personal journey of the actual people who help other people.
Yeah. Again, really good question. For those who don't know, Canvas Coworking and Startup Toowoomba are the two organisations that we run here in Toowoomba, and I with David Macefield, who's my partner in business, but my partner in life, so he's inside. You know, we work together on a day-to-day basis at the space, but because our space is quite big, we don't sit beside each other. Like, we're in different parts of the building and we're doing different things and we're talking to different people all the time. And then, of course, working from home, for the first couple of weeks I was home because I was unwell. So I self-isolated because of that, but he was fine, so he was still going to the space. And then when we, you know, it closed, he came home all the time. And that was interesting, because then we were sitting like 6 feet from each other 24 hours a day. And that was interesting. And, you know, I've got 2 young adult children, and one had been overseas and came home to live with us, because otherwise she was going to be, you know, stuck at home and not able to go get food or anything. So came to live home and hasn't lived at home for, you know, 3 or 4 years. The other one had moved home at the beginning of the year, so we were kind of used to that. But for the previous 12 months, we'd been empty nesters. So now all of a sudden, we're in each other's pockets. Our kids are at home. You know, we have a reasonable, like, average 3-bedroom house, but it's not a huge house. There's not a lot of space to escape to. But I'm part of a program called Peak Persona, which people may have heard of before, but Aaron and Peter run that, and I've been part of that now for I don't know, a couple of years, I think. And it's actually really nice to have that other place to let it out, you know, whatever it is that you need to do. And I think that's really important for people, to have that space to download and let out whatever they're feeling and stuff like that. And I think that's where my running habit come in as well, is I can go for a run on my own and get that headspace that I need on my own. But what I did think prior to all of this is I always thought I was a fairly introverted person, that I gained energy from myself. And I probably used to be at some point, I think, but since sort of moving into the whole co-working space and innovation space, I found even over the last few years that I would draw energy when I met with the other people in the ecosystem. And I think, I don't know whether it was you or someone else might have actually said at one other point, like, we're like this little cult, you know, that gets together, of people who operate spaces and run programs and stuff. And, you know, through Advanced Queensland or whoever, they'd bring us together in Brisbane or somewhere every now and again. And I draw so much energy from that gathering that then I could come back to my own community and have that to keep going. So I thought, in my head at least, I thought, okay, I get energy here and I drain energy there. And I would get the same if I went abroad. So, you know, I'm part of the Co-working Unconference Asia group and quite involved there. So whenever I went there, you know, it was the same thing. You draw up all this energy and you bring it back and you have enough to keep going for a while. But I actually realized since coming home that I actually draw energy from my own community every single day. And I've missed that a lot. So yeah. It's a good realization.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really good insights as far as kind of what you discovered about yourself over the last little bit. I want to touch base. And before I do, just what's next for you guys? Like we're obviously going to be heading into a bit of a new normal. As far as the programs you're running, you're currently running the mining accelerator. When you look ahead to the next 6 months, what do you have coming up?
Well, and sorry, I missed a little bit of what you said there because my mum called me. So sorry about that. But yeah, so coming up, we've got quite a few things. So we'll be kicking off our next Startup On-Ramp program in June. So our mining accelerator finishes towards the end of May, and I'll put in a little bit of plug. 26th of May is demo day. So if anyone wants to come check it out, that would be great, online. But early June, we start our next Startup On-Ramp cohort, which will be great. We've also been running programs like teaching people how to start their own podcast, and our podcast launches on Monday, the 11th of May, just saying.
Very cool.
So that's something else that I've actually started during this whole period as well. So I've learned how to create a podcast, and I've been interviewing members of our community. So that launches there. So that was a little side hobby that I got going over this period of, I don't know that I actually had any spare time, but let's call it spare time. But the other thing we're waiting on, and we're really hopeful that we'll get a decision soon, is around an incubator for female founders. And it's something that we've had in the pipeline now for a couple of years, and obviously got pushed back for another reason beforehand, but now we're sort of pending. But we're really hopeful to get that up and running, you know, as soon as we possibly can. I think it's a really valuable program. It was always designed to be a hybrid delivery program, again, because of our geographical, you know, position. But yeah, I think even more so now, we'll be looking for that. I think it is still going to be really important to get people together in person. I think have missed that, and where there's an opportunity to bring people together, even if it's just for a few days, to make that bond before going into an online program, I think that's important. And I think that's where our community have stayed fairly strong throughout this period, is because they already had that bond beforehand. It wasn't trying to form a new community. We had a community and we've kept them. The other thing that I think, you know, for us, we have to consider, so we reopened our space last week, very, very softly. We got a bit of press coverage for it this weekend, which was great, and we'll open it a little bit more intensely over the next few weeks, now that the government's changed some restrictions about people coming together. But, you know, where we're at that phase of starting to, you know, look at coming back into that physical realm. And I think for us, that is going to be important to really manage that and what that looks like going forward, and accepting that some people will be quite willing to do that straight away, and other people, it may still be a few months before they're ready. So just keeping that, I guess, balance of virtual connectivity versus physical connectivity going. And that could be another 6 months. I really don't know. Like, I have no idea how long we'll keep doing that for. As I said, you know, some of our programs and just regular things like our Lunch and Learn is on every week. It's always been, well, for a really long time now, it's been available via Zoom for people to connect in on and live. So that won't change. It'll just go back to a physical and virtual option. But I think we'll probably keep that physical and virtual option going for most of our other things, even things like WordPress meetups and stuff like that. Like, we've been doing them online these last couple of months. And yeah, I think for, I don't know how long, but for a while yet, we'll keep that mix going, and even our virtual co-working sessions for people to just stay connected in a way that they feel comfortable with. So yeah.